Supreme Court is ending its term with 6 final rulings. And one of the most highly anticipated decisions was whether a single federal judge has the authority to issue nationwide injunctions that block federal policies across the entire U.S. Now, remember, this case stems from a Trump administration executive order issued in January to limit who can claim U.S. citizenship from being born in this country. Birthright citizenship has been a constitutional right since 1868, and this ruling could impact thousands of babies who are born in the United States to non-citizen immigrant parents each year. Former U.S. Deputy Assistant Attorney General Thomas Dupree is here with what these high-profile rulings mean. CBS News Justice correspondent Scott McFarlane is in Washington with the impact it will have, and we have White House reporter Navaro standing by with reaction from the Trump administration. So, Thomas, I want to kick things off with you. I mean, these injunctions have been a method to block some of the president's widespread actions, as well as many others in the past, by the way. President Trump, though, he's facing dozens of nationwide injunctions on a variety of issues. So what implications does this ruling have on those? And what sort of precedent does this decision set for any president's executive powers going forward?
Today's decision is hugely important, not just for President Trump, but for all the presidents that will follow him. It really resets the balance of power between our nation's president and our nation's courts. The Supreme Court said that federal district judges, trial judges, lack the power to issue a universal nationwide injunction. They really are limited to granting relief to the specific parties to the case. That is to say, an order that's much narrower than one that would span the entire United States. And this is an issue that, as you note, has really been a thorn in the side for presidents of all political stripes. President Obama, President Biden were all frustrated when a single judge would come in and shut down a nationwide program. So today's ruling is, yes, a victory for President Trump, but more important, it really readjusts the power of our presidents vis-a-vis our judges.
I think that's a really important point that you just teased out, because this is not just going to impact what he's doing, but so many leadership in White House in the future. So I was going through the opinion very carefully. It is very carefully curated. For example, the opinion says relief can still be sought by pausing a nationwide policy if it's necessary to address specific harm. So the way I read this is that it's not exactly definitive. Lend me your legal expertise here. Why is that? And then what happens now?
Sure. There certainly are a lot of questions as far as the practical application of this decision goes that are going to be resolved at a later day. For one thing, can courts issue, big injunctions that might cover, say, 5 states, but not the nation? When could a district judge issue an order for the parties in the case that happens to encompass hundreds of thousands of people? These are questions that are going to be fleshed out in the weeks and the months to come by the lower courts. They're first going to have to tackle this particular case, meaning from now on, or at least, beginning tomorrow, the district judges in the United States are going to have to read the Supreme Court opinion and apply it in the context of President Trump's birthright citizenship order, saying, look, we know we don't have the power to issue a nationwide injunction, but just how broad an injunction can we issue? That's a really hard question. And although the Supreme Court's decision today was definitive as far as the constitutional structure of all of this goes, it was far from definitive as to how you practically apply what the Supreme Court said to these cases that are pending.
Thomas, really appreciate your insight and time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
For more on this, I want to bring in Scott McFarlane. All right, Scott, walk us through how the Supreme Court came to this decision regarding these nationwide injunctions, and then what impact it could have on birthright citizenship here in the U.S.
Yeah, this has been a mantra over the first 6 months of the administration, Kelly. The Trump administration pushing back on what they allege is overreach by federal judges, U.S. district judges in a federal courthouse somewhere in America, issuing an injunction that impacts all of America. The High Court ruled here is that those nationwide injunctions may not stand up to the constitutional rigors that the courts have to work under. And it limits the ability of district judges to issue broader, sweeping injunctions to stop things they deem might be unconstitutional, barring future hearings. It does open the door for the Trump administration to try to argue its case that birthright citizenship is not, in fact, guaranteed under the 14th Amendment, maybe an uphill climb. But really what the court has done here is pulled back, surrendering some of the judiciary's own powers here under the separation of powers, saying courts have been going too far and shouldn't moving forward.
And of course, there were other things today. I mean, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that parents are able to opt out of having their children participate in the reading of LGBTQ books in the classroom. How significant is that decision?
Oh, both the concurring opinion, the majority opinion, and the dissent all agree it's an important decision and could have outsized impacts. The majority here is ruling that in Montgomery County, Maryland, where, by the way, some of the justices actually live, the school system was overreaching by not allowing parents to opt kids out of certain lessons and reading materials that reference same-sex marriage and gender dysphoria. In this opinion, this 135-page opinion, Kelly, they actually included cover shots or page illustrations of some of those books, saying that the school system has to give parents some latitude, some ability to pull their kids out of things with which they don't agree. The dissent there, led by Sonia Sotomayor, argued that's a slippery slope. You start letting parents pull their kids out of lessons with which they disagree. Where does it stop? Do you let them pull kids out of lessons that they have political disagreements with? Can you pull kids out of lessons about women scientists or about matters involving evolution? That this is not tenable for school systems to let parents opt their kids out of anything with which they don't uniformly agree. What's more, the dissent argues that if schools are concerned about getting sued over all these opt-outs, they may simply decide not to teach anything controversial, which could plague education moving forward. But this decision was one that was somewhat expected when we saw the numbers. It was 6-3. The conservatives on the court were going to win the day here. And the conservatives, during oral arguments in this case, made clear they had concerns about this policy in Montgomery County, Maryland schools.
Yeah, fascinating the implications that this could all have. Scott McFarlane, thank you for your time today. Let's turn now to the White House reporter, Aaron Navarro. Aaron, how is the White House responding to the Supreme Court's decisions today?
Yeah, during that press briefing, you heard President Trump really criticize lower courts making those decisions, making those national injunctions. But he had one line talking about how this ruling is, quote, paving the way for his administration to promptly file, to proceed with numerous policies. And that's where I see the White House taking this ruling and applying it to the president's agenda. You heard the president cite some of the priorities that they would now take up, including ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing federal funding, all of that, despite that this ruling today still has an avenue for challenges to get national injunctions. Another notable bit, while there is that 30-day pause on the president's executive order repealing birthright citizenship to take place, and while we're expecting to see many follow-up litigation, pretty much making it sure that that actual executive order will not be implemented. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, was asked about, how will this be implemented in the hospital? Will the nurses ask for citizenship papers for a mother who is giving birth? And you heard the Attorney General not have many specifics on that, but repeat the line that, quote, violent criminals in our country are the priority right now.